Love is gone, that your love is gone.
Jeon Jungkook was the type of man to put himself before others, as strange as that may sound. The laughter that spewed from his throat had the others laughing with him. His girlfriend sitting on his lap despite the stares they were obtaining from his fellow students. The brunette's hair brushed by his face, Jungkook smiling up at her. His grip tightened on her waist, his head tilting to make eye contact with the man who had been eyeing him all day. The shy nerd, Park Jimin. Jungkook knew very well that the nerd probably had a crush on him. After all, who didn't? Jungkook felt the overwhelming urge to prove to the poor kid that Jungkook was taken. Very taken. "How about the movies?" she asked, drawing his attention back to her. His friends across the table from them snickered and made noises only kindergartners would. Jungkook ignored them. My place after?" he asked back, chuckling when she agreed. Jeon Jungkook never really grew up, so naturally, he was with a group of friends who were the same way. They all had their things. Jungkook's thing was rubbing his accomplishments in other people's faces, particularly those who liked or disliked him. Like the nerd pushing up his glasses not far from them. Angelina was his prize, an accomplishment. A beautiful brunette with a gorgeous smile. He genuinely did like her for more than her looks. But most of the reason why they got together in the first place was because of those cute dimples of hers. "Jeon, you coming to the party this weekend?" Jackson asked. "You throwing it?" "In what universe would I ever throw a party?" "Hell no, I'm not even going, just wanted to see if you were." "Pretty sure Sehun's the one throwing it." Jungkook furrowed his brows. "Sehun? That's a name I haven't heard in a while." Jungkook was on the second half of his first college year. Midterms ended yesterday for a majority of students. That must be why Sehun returned to party throwing. When Jungkook arrived for the fall semester, Sehun threw a party every other week. But this semester was different. Sehun disappeared randomly. Even his friends didn't know where he went. Apparently he was on mental health break from parties or something, almost failed out because of how many he did, Jackson said. Jungkook shrugged. Not too much he could say in response, so he leaned back in his seat while his friends finished up their lunches. Jungkook went to stare at the nerd again, but to his amazement, a redhead sauntered over to Jimin, sitting down across from him. Not just a redhead, a hot redhead. The fuck? He nudged his girl, her glancing where he was. Ugh, those nerds again. Is she gonna be the one who randomly gives him a makeover and suddenly he's hot? She asked. I hope so. He sure as hell could use one. I wonder what he looks like without glasses, Jungkook said. His group of friends snickered, catching Jimin's attention. He frowned, but didn't move to retaliate. The hot redhead across from him turned to see what made him upset, her full lips falling into a frown that matched Jimin's. Jungkook waved, her rolling those ocean eyes of hers and shifting her attention back to the nerd. Hey Jack, want a girlfriend? Jackson peeked his head up at Jungkook. You mean that redhead? Pretty sure she has a specific friend group and sticks to it. That friend group doesn't include us. Oh well, I think you could use one. Angelina slid off his lap, Jungkook straightening his shirt before hopping off the seat, Jackson joining his side. Baekhyun stayed where he was, as did Angelina. They spoke while Jungkook dragged Jackson over to the redhead and Jimin. The two went still when Jungkook leaned on their table. Hey guys, talking about quantum physics? No, martial arts. I'm taking classes, the redhead said, taking a sip from her container. A holographic one with dinosaur stickers on it. Jungkook snorted, completely sitting on the table now. Really? Dinosaurs. Really? Attitude? Jungkook gave up with her and turned to Jimin. Hey, this your girl? And no, he said, averting his eyes. We're working on a project together. Oh, a project? That's interesting. I think I've seen this movie somewhere before. Yes, shy nerd meets hot girl who gives him a makeover and takes off his glasses and suddenly he's hot. Jungkook took off Jimin's glasses, the man not bothering to even fight it. Oh wow, you don't look half bad now. Still gross, but you're getting there. He tucked the glasses in his pocket and hopped off the table, the redhead clenching her hands in and out of fists. Sweetheart, why don't you come sit with us instead of him? Let him do the project on his own, Jungkook said. Fuck off, Jeon, no one asks for your opinion. And give his glasses back. Jackson fiddled with his fingers, Jungkook motioning for him to speak. Can I have your number? Jackson asked. After all that, and you have the audacity to ask for my number? No, get lost. Jeon, I'm serious, give him his glasses back. What you gonna do, pipsqueak? Raise your voice at me? Jungkook asked, Jackson sighing beside him. He didn't question why Jackson seemed so defeated. Rather, he focused on the conversation at hand. Theft is a serious crime, Mr. Jeon. Do you really want to end up in court? I'll give them back if you tell us your name. Raven. Now give them back. He grabbed the glasses, about to hand them back. Then he dropped them and pushed Jackson to step on them. They cracked on the ground, Jungkook wincing as if it hurt him when it didn't. Ooh, ouch. Sorry, Park. Must have slipped out of my hands and poor Jackson, here's a klutz. When I get my next paycheck, I'll help you out, okay? See you in astronomy. Jimin didn't answer the whole time, so Jungkook snickered and turned on his heel, striding away. Jackson followed, not uttering a word. Jungkook offered his hand to Angelina, the girl taking it and jumping off the table. Shall we go to the party, my dear? He asked, kissing her hand. She smiled. We shall. The party was actually rather bland. Jungkook found himself wishing to leave by the 10-minute mark. He was with Angelina in the corner after a sloppy make-out session. He liked the girl, but Lord, she couldn't kiss to save her life. Even after he tried helping her with it. Jungkook specifically told her not to use tongue, but she did it anyway as if it were sexy. It wasn't. Not in the slightest. Jungkook eyed the crowd, swirling the liquid in his cup. No one was paying attention to him for once. He pushed the thoughts away, turning to his girlfriend. Want to get out of here? This is kind of a bust for me. She was too drunk to truly process what he was saying. Her head was swiveled in the direction of another, her eyes never leaving his. Jungkook raised a brow, eyes following her gaze. Not far away, quite literally standing at the drink station, was a man around Jungkook's height, his black hair permed into waves. He leaned against the wall and observed his girl attempt to straighten her hair. What you doing? He asked. She jumped, facing him now. Oh, nothing. I think I need another drink. Ah, so this was how this was gonna be, huh? Jungkook chuckled and shrugged, her taking it as an invitation to go to the station. He watched her go up, noting how she brushed her hand by the stranger's and poorly got a drink for herself. The stranger helped her, his girl thanking him profusely before coming back. When she did, the look on her face said it all. Get his number. What? Kook, don't be ridiculous, she said. So there was some sense left in her after all. Nice to know, but it sure as hell didn't seem like it sometimes. He didn't necessarily care about cheating. They were in college, not about to settle down for life. But he didn't want to see it happen. You. A flash of red came by. Jungkook glancing up to see the redhead, Raven, there with a drink in her hand. He had to admit she looked nice, donning a dress that matched her hair and showed off her curves without being too revealing. Surprised you're here, Red. Didn't think you'd like parties. What's wrong? Stereotyping nerds again? Is it my glasses? She pushed them up with her middle finger, eyeing Angelina, who was scanning the redhead from top to bottom. Great. Jungkook forgot that his girlfriend was bisexual. Raven noticed, smirking with a glint in her eyes. I saw you with Jungkook, but I don't think we've met. Raven and Angelina shook hands, Raven coming a bit closer. Raven. Angelina, she said, completely mesmerized by the woman. Jungkook rolled his eyes. What next? You gonna kiss her in front of me? Raven glanced at Angelina, his girlfriend grinning. She came closer and pressed her lips on Angelina's, Jungkook nearly jumping. The kiss only lasted 2 seconds, but it was enough to have Jungkook fuming. She patted him on the shoulder while Angelina giggled from giddy. Next time don't touch Jimin's glasses, okay? She gave his shoulder a squeeze a hair too harsh for his liking before departing, presumably going to look for the nerd. Angelina gave him puppy eyes that made him sigh. Not really her fault, even though she very obviously enjoyed it. You're something else, babe. You're too drunk. Come on, I'm taking you home. But hot guy, she said, pointing to the stranger who was now talking to someone Jungkook didn't recognize. Another girl, this one with dark locks and a pale face, her hair brought out more. You can see him another time. Oh, and as your boyfriend, I'm a little mad at you for letting a girl kiss you. But also as your boyfriend, that was hot as fuck. She laughed, but he could tell she didn't really know what she was laughing for. He chuckled regardless, taking her hand and going toward the door. By the time he reached it, Sehun's off-campus venue was massive. The wood opened and nearly hit his face. Hey, be more careful. Jungkook bit back a growl, but his face completely changed when he saw the nerd himself, Park Jimin, come in. Right away he shied back, keeping the door open so Jungkook could go out. Sorry Jungkook. Do my astronomy homework for me and I'll forgive you. Fine. Jungkook smiled. Your hot-not girlfriend is here, by the way. Might take her from you if you're not careful, Park. Jungkook paused to glance at Jimin. To be honest, you don't look totally ugly without glasses. You should keep it that way. Please do something with your hair though, looks awful. Jungkook pushed him on his way out, his girlfriend snickering the whole way out. He didn't bother glancing back to see if Jimin was watching, but Jungkook kissed his girlfriend's cheek anyway. Jungkookie, we're in public, she complained, but Jungkook kissed her cheek 2 more times before opening the passenger's side door for her. She slipped in without thanking him, figured, him shutting it and plopping down on his side after. He gripped the wheel, contemplating his options. Then, he pulled out her phone, entered the password his birthday, and ordered an Uber. Sorry, Angel, this party got a lot more interesting now that the nerd's there. He gave the phone back. Although perplexed, she still obeyed. They departed his vehicle, and he waited for the Uber to arrive and make sure she got in it all right before entering the venue again. The blasting music and blaring lights overloaded his senses, but he managed to slip to the back of the giant place soon enough. He wasn't entirely sure where they even were. Maybe one of those sports domes. The ground appeared to be turf, but the area itself was split up into sections that resembled a house, starting with a room that appeared to be a living room. People pouring drinks in the corner and couches everywhere. Sehun was known as the king of parties, and this one, although boring to Jungkook, was still pretty looking. Jungkook could admire the amount of work that went into it. He traversed through the rooms until he spotted a head of black being led by a head of red to a back room. Jungkook snickered and followed, his size not making that easy to do discreetly. Many called his name and tried greeting him, but he either ignored them or said hi and kept walking. Jungkook squeezed through the crowd and slipped into the back hall, noting another door nearby. He pressed his back up against it, his ears perking up to listen. The voices indeed belonged to Raven and the nerd, Jungkook biting back a laugh at what he had discovered. Okay, repeat after me, Raven said. He assumed that the nerd nodded in response as he didn't speak. I will. Not. Let Jungkook bend me over and fuck me sideways, Raven finished. Let Jungkook bend me over and fuck me sideways. There was a pause. But can he fuck me from the back? Asking for a friend. Park Jimin. Jungkook almost lost his cool for a moment there. He had met many who've had crushed on him, fucked half of them, and the other half weren't up to his standards, so he rejected them. But none quite like this. A shy nerd who seemed to be loose around the redhead, but Jungkook never got the impression that they knew each other well. After all, the nerd himself said that they were working on a project together, nothing more, nothing less. Jungkook pondered if they've done these types of things before. The 3 of them were freshmen as far as he was aware. Raven carried herself more like a sophomore, but Jimin was definitely a freshman like Jungkook. Okay, but that's not a no, Jimin said. You're hopeless. Why do you even like Jungkook anyway? He's terrible to you and doesn't actually care. This isn't one of those situations where he's secretly in love with you because he picks on you. Jungkook is just an ass. Jungkook could agree with that. I'm sorry, but you need to let go and start moving on. There were footsteps, but Jungkook had no intention of moving, even if they saw him snooping. However, no one came out of the room yet. Why don't we go out then? Jimin asked. Jungkook threw his hands over his mouth to stop a snort from coming out. What? Jimin, we've known each other maybe a week. Sorry, I don't know. I've been here half a year and you're the only person who talks to me. Don't feel pressure to like, why be my friend or something. I just figured I'd try. I don't like you. Oh, obviously I like Jungkook, but I thought maybe we could try something or... I'm sorry, Jimin, but we met literally a week ago because of our project. I had no idea who you were up until now. Jungkook could practically hear the painful smile. Don't apologize, I'm used to it. See you around, I guess. Wait, if you don't know anyone and have no friends, then why are you here? Good question. He didn't take Raven out to be smart, but hey, looked like she had half a brain cell after all. Because you asked me to be. He walked out before she could reply, and even Jungkook felt a sting on that one. Jungkook of all people. He was very aware that he was an asshole, but damn, he felt the bite on that one. Jimin turned and saw Jungkook, his face going pale. Jungkook, who was leaning against the wall, gave him a small wave and smiled. Hey Park. Talking about me. You know, everyone and their dead great-grandmothers knew you had a crush on me. Sorry, Jimin said, his hands clasping together. I didn't know you were out here. Nerd, I'd like you a lot more if you stopped stuttering. Oh, I'm sorry. Not helping. Come on, let's get back to the party. I'll get you a drink, HM. How about that? Only reasonable that I give you a fair chance, right? I mean, I don't really know you that well. What do you say? Raven peeked out of the room and rolled her eyes. Jimin, don't listen to him. He's not worth your time. Come on, let's get out of here. This place is a bust. I'll buy you ice cream. Didn't you say your favorite was Rocky Road? Jimin didn't even glance at her. Jungkook had to fight for his life to keep a smirk off his face. God, this was way too easy. Jimin. Sorry, I'll be back soon, Jimin said, Jungkook taking Jimin's arm and guiding him away from the redhead. Jungkook took Jimin to the most populated area, Jimin's hands clammy either from claustrophobia or being this close to his crush. Jungkook was willing to bet on both. Raven was still following them and calling for Jimin, but she was barely heard over the intensity of the music and crowd. Let's start small. What's your major, nerd? Wait, let me guess. Reading. Reading isn't a major. I was being sarcastic, Jungkook said with a groan. We'll add it to the list of things we need to work on. Stuttering, hair, humor. Jungkook sniffed the air around him. Aroma and breath too. Please don't breathe in my direction. I'm sorry. And stop stuttering. This isn't a romance movie. Jimin shut his mouth entirely, his ears flushing pink. Jungkook shoved him toward the center of the room, noticing Jackson not far. He took the drink Jackson was holding right out of his hand, giving it to Jimin instead. Jackson glared but didn't bother talking back. Don't know what it is, but it'll fix the breath problem. But wasn't that... Oh, come on, nerd. You want me to get to know you, right? Jungkook placed a hand on Jimin's hip, staring into his eyes. It was safe to say Jimin faltered at that. There you go. Go ahead, drink up and let's have a chat. Is it alcohol? Jungkook sniffed it. Smells like it. Have you ever been to a party? Actually, wait, I know the answer. All college parties have alcohol as the main beverage. I don't really know my tolerance. I'll drink it with you. How about that? Will that make you shut up? Jimin reluctantly agrees, taking what Jungkook could only describe as a kitty lick out of it. Jungkook groaned and grabbed the cup, drinking a solid gulp of it before handing it back. Jimin took it with a sweater pause he created from his black sweater, bringing it to his lips. You can drink where I put my lips if you'd like. Indirect kiss kind of thing, Jungkook said. Jimin fumbled with the drink, almost dropping it if it weren't for Jungkook still having his fingers on the side of the red cup. Don't be dumb, reading major. Hold the cup right. He did, taking a few sips. Jungkook pretended not to notice Raven watching the whole time, him drawing the conclusion that she must care for him in some way. Not romantically, otherwise she wouldn't have rejected him, but she must want to genuinely be his friend. Poor bastard wanted to be friends with such a boring guy. I'm an electrical engineering major, Jimin said, computer science minor. Electrical engineering? I probably could have guessed that. Well, you know what they say. Major in whatever you want to major in and minor in computer science so you still have a job. Does anyone actually say that? Of course they do. Jungkook placed his hand over Jimin's lips. He had to say that Jimin, although a huge nerd and disgusting to look at, had big lips. Plump lips that were actually quite soft. Maybe kissing him wouldn't be too bad, but anything else would be just gross, so Jungkook didn't even think about that. Okay nerd, stutter one more time and I give this up, got it? Jimin nodded, Jungkook removing the hand. What's your major? He asked, his voice nearly choking in his throat. Jungkook tried desperately not to laugh. A major? Don't really need one when I have a full ride scholarship here. Here for the football team. Didn't see that one coming. Jungkook raised a brow. No, just saying that you're the stereotypical football player in all the movies, so I'm not surprised. Huh. Did Park Jimin give Jeon Jungkook sass? Maybe there was hope after all. Jungkook snatched the drink out of Jimin's hand and drank it, shoving it against his chest. Chug the rest, he said, disregarding their previous conversation. Jimin's questioning eyes fell on him, but he didn't back down. Chug the rest. Now, I won't ask again. Jackson and Raven were both watching them now, Jimin carefully taking the cup. He did as he was told, Jungkook clapping at the end of it. His obnoxious clapping caught the attention of the room, Baekhyun, who was also in the area, turning the music down. He sensed what was coming, hence why he was Jungkook's friend. He always supported his endeavors. Did I do good? Jimin made sure to stop his speech before he stuttered, instead breaking off and trying again. Jungkook admired the effort. I'd say. He took the cup and tossed it back at Jackson. Throw that away, please. He came a bit closer to Jimin, observing his flushed face. He flicked a strand of the dark hair out of his face. Although not everyone was watching them, most in their vicinity were, Jungkook placing one hand on Jimin's cheek and the other on his hip. Jungkook wah. SHHH, I'm just getting a better look at you. Jungkook parted his hair to show off his forehead, and even he was taken aback for a moment. Oh, wow, I can't even be an asshole here. You look good with the forehead showing. Pretty well-developed cheekbones, too. You should stop hiding in the back of classrooms and actually talk to people, nerd. You don't seem half bad after all. Jimin at this point was a mess, sweat on his hands as he tried not to touch Jungkook to show it. But Jungkook could see it when he scanned over his body. Jimin went still under his intense eyes, Jungkook deciding to be an even bigger tease. He came closer and brushed his thumb over Jimin's lower lip. Jimin didn't speak the whole time. Plump lips too, Jungkook whispered, moving his hand away to give him better access to the nerd's face. Jimin kept himself frozen, Jungkook leaning in and placing his lips on his. The nerd didn't kiss back for a few seconds out of shock, Jungkook pretending to be offended and moving away. Oh, I'm sorry, is this not what you wanted? You were spilling your heart out to your not-girlfriend over there. He pointed at Raven, Jimin clenching his hands by his side. Leave her out of this. Aoi is little Jiminy gonna stand up for his girlfriend? Or wait, she rejected you, so she can't be your girlfriend, right? I said leave her out of this. The crowd around them laughed, Jungkook making a tisk noise with his tongue. Come on, kiss me back and maybe I will. Jimin contemplated his options, tears in his eyes. Pussy. Can't handle alcohol, friends, a woman, or me. Can't even kiss your crush back. You're so pathetic. Jungkook shoved him so hard he fell to the ground, hitting the table as he went down. Jimin whimpered and crawled away, Jungkook snickering at his pitiful form. Such a... He was cut off by someone harshly grabbing his arm and whipping him around. In the brief moment he got to look, he saw red hair. Then a fist landed on his face. Jungkook grunted and hopped back to avoid any other attacks, shaking off the shock of the first one. Great, he'd have a bruise there for a while. Jungkook blinked and his vision cleared, revealing a seething redhead. Hey Rave, was I wrong? Is he your boyfriend after all? All you do is insult people and get off on it. If anyone here is pathetic, it's you. And what's even more pathetic is that people support you. Or maybe they're just scared because of your physique. But fuck that, I'm not. Go fuck yourself, Jeon Jungkook. And everyone who likes someone who bullies other people at this age, the same goes to you. She shook her head. Honestly, grow up. This isn't high school anymore. You're an adult, act like it. She went to Jimin's side, placing her index finger underneath the cut on his cheek. Jungkook watched her help him up, Jimin hanging his head as they departed the room. The music turned back up, Jackson coming over to him with Baekhyun. "Weren't you too harsh?" Jackson asked, but Jungkook shrugged it off. "Nerd needed a lesson. He's been eyeballing me for a bit now. Deserved it in my opinion." "She punch hard?" "Of course not." A lie, but he had to maintain it. That punch honestly hurt like a bitch. Jungkook waved them off. "I came back to do just that. I'm gonna go back to my dorm, maybe drop off some flowers at my girlfriend's place. See you guys later." He strode out before they could respond. He went outside only to see his car in the middle of being violated. Raven had a knife out, one of those retractable ones, and she had it dug into his front tire. He rushed over, barely containing his fury. "What the fuck? Oops, must have slipped. How about this, Jeon? Don't press charges against me like you even need the money, you rich fuck, and I won't press charges for breaking Jimin's glasses, face, and whatever else you've done at this point," Raven said. Jimin limping away from her as to not be seen by Jungkook. Ugh, honestly fuck these two. They were such a disgusting duo. Jungkook hated with all his heart. "Fucking hell, how am I supposed to get home then?" "Subway." She gave him a half-hearted glance before following Jimin. Jungkook cursed and grabbed his stuff from inside his car, way too exhausted to call someone yet. He'd do it in the morning. Well, technically it was already morning, it was around 12:30 a.m., but he meant he would do it tomorrow when he woke up. Jungkook plugged in the directions for the subway on his phone, following them closely. It took 10 minutes, but he got there and it was empty. Not a surprise. This late, no one was ever around. In New York, the one thing he hated were the subways. He tried not to take them unless he had to, like now. Jungkook thought back to Jimin and the events of the party, but he honestly didn't have anything other than annoyance in his veins. His beautiful car got a flat tire because of her, and he didn't have a spare in the trunk. This day couldn't get any worse. He sat on the nearest bench, voices of construction workers on the other side of the railings hitting Jungkook's ears. He didn't pay them any mind. They entered the area, carrying barrels of what Jungkook assumed to be either materials or chemicals. Maybe both. He averted his eyes and waited for the train to arrive. 2 minutes passed, Jungkook tapping the heel of his foot against the ground. The workers were still there. Jungkook could faintly hear them muttering about how they lost a lid or something. He held back a snort. How did they lose a lid? Seemed like an easy thing to keep track of. Jungkook shook his head, leaning back and letting his head hit the wall. He shut his eyes, humming a soft beat to himself to calm him down. He didn't particularly want to go back to campus. Granted, he didn't have any classes tomorrow, but that didn't mean he wanted to be on campus. He wasn't sure. Tickle, tickle. Jungkook paused his thoughts, wondering why he felt a small tickling sensation on his skin. He glanced down at his hand, raising a brow when he saw the little body and 8 legs roaming there. He snickered, raising his left hand to get a better view of the 8-legged creature. A spider in the subway. Wow, who would have thought? Jungkook flinched when he felt a pinch, but otherwise he didn't necessarily care. The spider, its legs cyan and its body navy blue, waited a second before starting to go away. Jungkook saw the bite mark after and grunted, flicking the thing away. "Bitch," he mumbled, stepping on it. He whistled a small tune to himself, paying the bite mark no mind like he did the construction workers. Jungkook heard the vehicle approaching and stood, brushing himself off and sauntering over to wait for it to fully arrive. He stayed there, glancing down the tube with a soft smile. Today wasn't so bad after all. Hopefully that nerd would leave him alone now. Both nerds, actually. Jungkook laughed to himself for a few moments, placing his hands in his pockets and letting his dark locks brush by as the train slowed to a stop in front of him. He entered it, knowing the stops well enough by now. He sat, crossing his legs over one another and staring at the empty compartment he was in. Peace and quiet, just what he needed tonight. And tomorrow he would relax and have another good day. But little did he know, everything was about to change.